In this Team Start highlight, we're going to talk about user stories and the backlog. What we see here is a backlog on the screen where the highest priority items are at the top. And since those are the ones we're going to work on next, we want them to be a nice small size. And because they're a small size, they're going to have a lot more detail. Now the picture on the screen is showing an iceberg. This is an analogy that Mike Cohn came up with. And the reason why we call it an iceberg is there's a water line. And all the stories that are above the water line are the ones that are ready for the team to work on. As we go ahead and we start sprinting, those stories are going to be worked off at the top of the backlog and they're going to disappear like we're showing on the screen. When that happens, just like in a real-life iceberg, bigger stories are going to float up from the top. But they're not going to be the right size for our team to work on them in the sprint. So we're going to go ahead and constantly be breaking those up into small bite-sized chunks that the team can sprint on. So this concept of bringing stories up from a lower level up in the backlog is something that we call grooming. And a big part of that is where we right-size the stories. That happens at all levels of the backlog, so even things that are nice big stories at the bottom of the backlog are also going to float up. And the first thing we do is we turn the backlog on its side, so time goes left to right. Then we talk about how there's need for 3 different grooming cadences. We want to be grooming our sprint and iterations, we want to be grooming for our releases, and we want to be grooming at the roadmap level. Most teams on a 2-week sprint will go ahead and set aside maybe 1 to 2 hours to go ahead and groom for the next iteration. So if we're on iteration 10, we're spending 1 or 2 hours per week grooming for iteration 11. We also want to be setting 1 or 2 times a month aside to groom the bigger stories for the release, and even once or twice a quarter to go ahead and groom for the roadmap level of the backlog.